Now, improvised search parties are attempting to find it. Just what it is, no one is sure.
And then when it came up over the trees, I could see it was a bird, a huge bird.
We couldn't believe what we really saw. This thing was standing there it had a body just like a man. You could see muscles in its legs. We sit there for a minute, looked at each other, and then we took off.
Hi guys, this is the Midnight Hour podcast presented by Midwest Desperados. I'm Matt.
So professional. I'm Jaden. I'm Rye.
Of course you all know who I am. So this week we're going to talk about the Mothman. Because there's a very interesting overlap with the Mothman and other similar creatures throughout the world. But the most interesting part is that they happen to show up just before disaster strikes. We're talking Chernobyl, we're talking West Virginia. We were going to talk about the Owl Man, but he didn't seem to have any premonitions of natural disasters.
Yeah, he's the outlier, it's like the exception to prove the rule kind of thing to me. And unfortunately also is recorded incidents. There's only a brief 3 or so that I could find, and they are more or less he shows up, does creepy stuff, flies around, and people run. So there you go, Owlman of Cornwall.
And with that brief description of the Owlman, we're going to move on to more relevant and more interesting Mothman sightings. Mm-hmm. Let's start with Chernobyl.
Right. Blackbird of Chernobyl. I love the name first and foremost. So the Chernobyl incident itself, it's so deep, the amount of issues that went on, the amount of stories that have come out of it. You know, the entire Pripyat exclusion zone is considered like dangerous, haunted. There might be monsters, mutants, all these terrible, awful things. But oh my god, hey, look at that, I have a notebook. So the Blackbird of Chernobyl is an interesting Mothman type creature. It's pretty similar in description, about headless humanoid, roughly 6 feet in height, 20-foot wingspan was reported, which is very big in that area.
Crazy. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. The eyes are said to be glowing red, like Mothman. Center mass, like where the chest would be on a person. And in one specific account, pilots during the incident, like they were trying to put out the fires by dumping boron, clay, and sand onto the fire. The pilots reportedly saw shark-like teeth on the entity as it flew by their wind screen, which terrifying. But unfortunately, it's also the only reported account of that. So take that with a grain of salt. So yeah, 1986. This happens in Pripyat, Ukraine. Now the Ukraine. April 12th during the incident. In the nights leading up to the incident, though, multiple workers at the facility, security, engineers, up and down the echelons, they reportedly had been witnessing a strange black entity flying around the town in the nearby woodlands above the facility. And some people were reporting this. The engineers at Chernobyl were telling them, hey, that's not your job. I don't care. Get over it. Some of these whistleblowers, they were getting phone calls from people claiming to be KGB, the Soviet CIA, Secret Service kind of people, telling them to be quiet, shut up. This didn't happen. Go back to work. Some were plagued by nightmares where they kept seeing the entity. It was like a very traumatic experience for these people, understandably. All of their descriptions were all in alignment, with the only exception being that shark teeth thing. So that's something that adds a little bit of credence.
So I want to go back to the helicopter pilot.
I have his name, actually. Well, okay, so not the pilot, but the crew chief. He makes sure that the helicopter's like running safe and everything. Sergeant Valery Semenov. He saw the entity flying through the smoke plumes as the firefighters were putting it out. Multiple firefighters on the ground as well, like before they finally succumbed to the radiation sickness, they claimed that they saw the same entity like buzzing their heads through the smoke plumes. And there were 600 airmen pulled from all over the USSR to put out these fires. Not all 600 of them reportedly saw it, obviously, but enough. And after the fires were finally put out and they did a mass evacuation of the whole area, because it's not safe. The amount of fallout that's coming down, it's inhospitable to human life immediately. It was never seen. And in the decades since the Chernobyl incident, there's been no entity of a similar description seen in the area of Pripyat. That's where there's a bit more of a, I want to say similarities to the Mothman. The description, the sort of like omen presence it seemed to have, and the nature of it, just hovering the area, making itself known before disaster and being seen during the disaster, because Mothman was seen on the bridge before it fell.
In West Virginia.
Yep.
That one was kind of interesting. You know, you get all these sightings of Mothman before the disasters, right?
Mm-hmm. So that's where a lot of people draw the overlap is, like as the omen and stuff. There is one explanation people have been trying to create for the blackbird, is that there's a species of black stork that lives in the Ukraine, like, big black bird. The only issue is that its wingspan is 6 feet. That does not align.
And also, why the heck would a stork be hanging around while this is all happening?
My theory on that could be just the wildlife's freaking out because what the hell's going on? All these helicopters going around, all the firefighters coming through, there are armies showing up to evacuate all the civilians and stuff. Like, wildlife doesn't know where to go. They're seeing all these smoke plumes, sand, dust, more fallout. Like, it could just be panic. Like, that's a pretty safe explanation, I would say, to that. Some species of owl have been attributed to it because owls can have a surprisingly large wingspan. But the fact that so many people all saw this entity circling around is the strange part. And granted, this is a high stress situation. To everybody on the ground at this time, they are assuming hundreds are going to die. They assume thousands are going to die. And at the worst case scenario, millions are going to be dead within months from just the fallout spreading. Thankfully, only 28 died in the immediate explosion fire. Many more, unfortunately, succumbed to illnesses and complications due to radiation. But people assume that the Blackbird of Chernobyl is, sometimes it's the same entity as Mothman. Sometimes they think it might be a species because, halfway across the world. I don't really know where I sit on that, Mark. It's interesting, to say the least. Out of like all the paranormal, supernatural things that people attribute to Chernobyl, the Black Bird is probably my favorite because there's no good explanation. There's plenty of fake stories that came out of Chernobyl just because, it's the worst nuclear disaster in human history. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I don't think we would ever be able to move to Pripyat to go snipe hunting. I want to feel like it's a snipe hunt. I wouldn't want to do that. Pripyat's the radiation has gotten better, obviously.
100%. 100%.
What if it is a theoretical? What if the people with the theories that this Blackbird of Death and the Mothman are angels of death? And they are supernatural. What if, because if they're appearing before disaster strikes, if they're appearing before Chernobyl, before the bridge collapse, and those can't be the only stories. Maybe they're the only documented stories because of the loss of life contributed to each one.
Probably, as well as they were also very,
well known.
Yeah, like I said, Chernobyl.
Who hasn't heard of?
Yeah.
This could vaguely kind of tie in to the third man syndrome, except this time, like, third man syndrome, right, is like when someone goes through something really traumatic, like a car accident, and they're in it by themselves, and all of a sudden someone's there being like, hey, no, it's gonna be okay, you're gonna be fine. What if it's almost like that, but in kind of the reverse effect, where it's like, hey, bad shit's gonna happen, here's your little warning, I can't be there for you as it's happening, but this is my warning to you. It's like a reversed third man.
I look at it as more of a premonition, a warning, like almost like you're saying. I think we're on the same track, we're just seeing different houses. I like Mothman being there in West Virginia. I have a friend that lives down in Kentucky, and she moved to Kentucky from New Jersey, and she's told me countless stories.
The Appalachians are a strange place.
So you look at the Appalachians, you look at Chernobyl, look at all the wild, like just the acres and thousands of acres of woodland up there in Russia?
In that section of the Ukraine, it's pretty heavily woodland, but it's also very flat.
So on a theoretical level, Matt, because that's what all this is, how theoretical would it be that something could be there that's undocumented, especially at the time of Chernobyl?
At the time of Chernobyl, I struggle with a bit because this is the 80s in Russia. In the Ukraine, in the entire western half of the Eurasian steppe, that is the most densely populated of the whole Soviet Union. Okay,
let's scale back from all that crap. Let's get away from the supernatural. Let's go back to the theories that you and I have had about that, about it being a crane. Like you and I were saying, the same size,
Sandhill cranes.
Sandhill cranes. They make a lot of noise.
Yeah.
They're not quiet when they take off. They're very bold. Like you and I were saying in our lost footage, that out there at LaBelle Cemetery, that crane was walking right towards us.
Mm-hmm. Because it knew we were going to move.
Right. So maybe the Mothman is just in the right place at the right time to be seen. Mm-hmm. And with all the chaos going on, that happens afterwards. All the chaos. Your brain is attached to all the chaos going on. You're trying to recall things. Of course, if you see something like that, your brain may actively create something They may not have been as intense as what it was at the time.
And like I said, it's
Traumatic.
I can't imagine a situation that's going to be more high stress for so many people at the same time.
But
Shy of actual war.
right. But think about it. If you walked into work tomorrow and you saw some creature out of the ordinary just on top of one of the doors, okay? You walk, it was an unusual animal that you saw. Maybe they weren't able to explain it, like the black bird of death. Maybe it was a creature that was unknown to the workers there. They didn't know what it was. Not an outdoorsman. They don't know what wildlife. They're just there to work. Of course, because there's a big fucking black bird.
The only thing that's like strange, and also another correlation between these two, is government officials or suits like finding these people who are making these reports and then telling them to keep quiet. Because with Mothman, there was a few reports of men in black. And with granted, it's the Soviet Union still. So people making reports that make the Soviet Union look bad, officials are pretty quick to try and shut them up. So people making reports from a nuclear facility, one of the more famous ones in the world at the time too, it casts a bad light on the Soviet Union if it's like, oh, there's monsters around the nuclear facility. Oh, we don't want to make these. Like, of course, the KGB is going to be like, hey, shut up. You're a nuclear engineer. Do your job.
We're going to wrap you up this week. Thanks for tuning in. I hope everybody learned something interesting. Thanks, Matt, for bringing all your information. From me,
Matt?
And Jaden.
Right.
We'll catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Oh, don't forget to go and check out our social media. We got Instagram, Facebook. We haven't been too active on Twitter over the years because we just, we only got two of you
It's
on there.
X now.
What?
It's X now.
Nobody calls it that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
We
TikTok.
got 2 followers on Twitter. If you guys want us to post more on there, go follow us over there. We got a TikTok. All the links are on our website. Our website is in the description. Go check that out. Let us know if you guys want merch. If we should start investing in t-shirts, stickers, buttons, coffee mugs. Might be working on some coffee mugs, actually.
We should totally have coffee mugs. Why don't we? Yeah, that's why we're amateurs. We don't have coffee mugs that say MW Desperados.
And now that we're going to get rid of Jaden, it'll be down to a 3-man team very soon. Everybody leave in the comments, #adios Jaden.
Bye, Jade.
Good being with you guys.
We'll see you guys next week.